Hey, Devil's Digest viewers, Zach Keenan here, alongside publisher Hope Rubino, going over the 2021 early signing day period. It's been a great day, almost one of celebration. It feels like a lot of great names coming out of this for ASU. And Hope, before we start highlighting some individuals that we really want to talk about and break down some video of, what are your overall impressions of the 2021 class for the Sun Devils?
Well, I think your first impression really is the approach that Arizona State did take with this class, which I'm not going to say unique because I'm sure some other programs did take this approach in one way or another, but there's really not a large number of players who are going to sign in this class. There were 10 that were announced today, and there are going to be another 3 announced at later dates for various reasons. But we'll concentrate just on the 10 that are right now signed and officially announced by Arizona State. So it's really a small class compared to what we usually do see, even on an early signing day where a lot of it is still work in progress. But on the other hand, I think Arizona State's approach was when you have this quote-unquote free agency happening in college football, which really was necessitated obviously by the pandemic, and having the NCAA have a one-time year exception where transfers do not have to sit out a year due to transfer. Usually we see that happening when somebody is a non-grad transfer. They do have to sit out a year, and then however many years of eligibility they have left, that's what they play. And the grad transfers were able to play immediately. Well, now, just because of the pandemic and really turning everybody's lives upside down in college football and elsewhere, every player that's transferring between now and I think it's March or April, they can not only go to the school of their choice through the transfer portal, but also be able to play immediately. And I think those are the players that Arizona State wanted to have breathing room, if you will, in their class. So that's why they decided not to sign a particular big class right now in December, but have some room to play with, if you will, in January, February, March. I mean, maybe even spilling into April, May at this point, just so they can sign some of the transfers. So that's something that is definitely different, having such a small class, even though there should be 3 or 4 players announced in terms of high school prospects between now and the February. You definitely see a recurring theme trying to get as much length as possible on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Really a lineman that 6'4", 6'5" at a minimum, a lot of them actually being 6'6", and at the skill positions, wide receiver, defensive back, and even linebacker this year, really getting a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism. So those are some of the goals that I think Herm Edwards and his staff really set forward 2 years ago. And I think in each and every recruiting class, including this one in 2021 in the early signing period, we do see the Sun Devils achieving those goals. So even though it's a much smaller class in number size, I still think you do see those recurring themes and maybe that philosophy that the Sun Devil staff is trying to keep from recruiting class, from one recruiting class to another.
They're keeping their options open, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes.
So we'll start highlighting some players. First off, let's talk about Garen Stanley. What a monster is this guy? A 6'6", 230-pound outside linebacker from Franklin, Louisiana. What can you tell me about Garen Stanley?
Well, he's really an outside linebacker that is definitely going to play defensive end for the Sun Devils. And you always have to commend schools like ASU, which do go to rural areas, whether it's Louisiana or anywhere else really in the country, and really go off the beaten path. You know, a car ride that lasts 3 hours rather than 30 minutes once you land in the airport. And ASU was able to get on Stansbury really, really early in the process. And I think one of the validations that you actually did find a good player is that when you have weeks, and in Stansbury's case, months after he commits to Arizona State, Penn State, Texas, and Tennessee were all on him pretty hard. And what I like about Stansbury is that he did keep the loyalty factor going, if you will, because all those schools I just mentioned wanted Stansbury to wait until the February signing period so they can figure out their needs. And if they have room for Stansbury, great. And if they don't, oh well, maybe Stansbury has to look for a different home. And Stansbury, and I don't think with any really pressure from Arizona State, but just really realizing the school that was on him early, that he was able to establish the most relationship with. And don't forget, really, in a pandemic era where you don't have any in-person contact whatsoever with coaches, whether it's your neck of the woods or actually taking a visit, official or unofficial. A lot of the relationship was really established, just like you and I are talking right now. And Stansbury did recognize that he really felt the most comfortable with Arizona State, and he said 2 weeks ago, "I am signing on December 16th." And that was a huge hint, and a very unsubtle hint, I would say, to those schools. Sorry, I am going to sign with Arizona State, and obviously the Arizona State coaches and fans loved seeing that tweet when it did come out. So Stansbury is definitely one player that I'm not going to really call him that much a diamond in a rough, because I think he's somebody that could make somewhat of a splash when he first comes over here. But again, going back to my earlier point, getting a 6'6", when the defensive end that can be a real menace for opposing offensive tackles to contain. Stansbury is one guy that definitely fits that bill.
Next up is Lanyata Alexander Jr., nicknamed Junior Alexander. He's a 6'3", 170-pound wide receiver from Burien, Washington. What can you tell me about Junior Alexander?
Yeah, I think with Junior Alexander, not that I would call this Arizona State wide receiver really small in stature, but Alexander at 6'3", as you mentioned, definitely brings size, definitely brings that huge wingspan, that huge catch radius, the wide receiver that you can throw a 50-50 ball or a fade route and know that more often than not, he's the type of wide receiver that's going to come down with the ball, is going to catch it at his highest point. So he really fulfills a need for Arizona State that way. And look, I mean, I know with some players that Arizona State was not able to see senior film just because the local state laws in some cases did prohibit those players from having a senior season until sometime of January, February of 2021. Arizona State really, when they saw Junior Alexander do what he did in his junior year of high school, they've seen enough. And I know sometimes that's a saying that can have an adverse connotation to it, but in Arizona State's case and Junior Alexander's case, that was definitely a very, very good connotation. They didn't need to wait for him to play his senior year. And by the way, Junior Alexander is one example of a player that did sign today, but really does want to play his senior year of high school. And I think that says something of the character of the player that does have that college scholarship in his back pocket, but still wants to play with his teammates, with his brothers one last time. So he's one player, like I said, he showed more than enough on film during his junior season and also on 7-on-7 tournaments that he's somebody that does fit Arizona State's mold. And when we talk about the length that ASU is looking for at offensive line and defensive line, there's something also to be said about looking at the skill positions, wide receiver and defensive back. They do want the taller, lankier players, which obviously have to complement that size with speed. And Junior Alexander is definitely one guy that really, really fits the bill. And that's one guy that I believe Herm Edwards in the press conference earlier today highlighted as just, look out for that guy, because he can be one of the newcomers that can make his name known early and often.
And for the last of our high school signees, we'll talk about Tommy Hill, someone who can really do it all. He's a 6'1" athlete from Orlando, Florida, and kick returns, anything, you name it. It seems like nothing's off the table for Tommy Hill.
Yeah, I called him a Swiss Army knife because his high school coach told me that he was on the field well over 100 plays each and every Friday. So that is really, really impressive, even at the high school level. And just, I think the combination of speed and strength that he has really makes him an intriguing player. And look, I mean, if he plays some offense at Arizona State, would I be shocked? Absolutely not. Can he be a kick returner, punt returner, even though his fellow Floridian, DJ Taylor, just less than a week ago showed that he's very, very capable of doing that. But can he get into the mix some way, somehow? Absolutely. And even though the Arizona State coaches like him at corner, I'm wondering if he doesn't find his way into the safety slot, just because you almost don't want to, quote unquote, waste that combination that he has a strength of speed. But he's definitely a player that, even if he does his regulated to be a defensive back, I still think you can get a lot of ooh and ah moments out of him. He's a player that really jumps at you when you watch his game film, when you watch his highlights. And one player that I think Arizona State was able to pluck from a very talent-rich state, just like Florida. There were a lot of big-time programs on them, and Florida is one of those states that really attracts schools from the SEC, schools from the ACC, a lot of schools from the Big Ten like to dip into Florida. And for Arizona State to secure him as early as he did in the process and really just secure him period, that is a great addition to a very young and talented defensive back group. And even though there's not a lot of veterans over there, I think that Tommy Hill is somebody that can really hold its own just because it's a pretty young group. And again, he just has such a skill set, such a God-given talent that's really going to be, I think, impossible for him not to flash in his freshman year in Tempe.
Strong words. Last up will be Travis Moore, who we said we're done with high school signees. This guy's a transfer. So Arizona State's transferring from LSU is Travis Moore, who he played really well in JUCO. LSU picked him up, one of the top-ranked defensive guys in JUCO. LSU picked him up. He decided to forego this season, and now he's going to spend the next year at least in Tempe.
Yeah, and look, I mean, truth be told, he didn't get really that many opportunities at LSU, but when you talk about a national champion, sometimes game day snaps are really hard to come by. And like you said, he was a four-star out of junior college, so there's definitely some talent over there. And Arizona State really took a hard look at him and really vetted him, because don't mistake the fact that Arizona State might end up taking 5 transfers, whether it be grad or non-grad transfers between now and the spring, that they're really not focusing on quality. I mean, yes, they're going to concentrate on the offense and defensive line in the transfer market, but again, it doesn't mean they're just going to take just any player that becomes available. And I don't know if we'll be able to add any more transfers that will be able to come in the spring, just like Travis Moore will. But the fact that Travis Moore is able to come in the spring is obviously huge for the program, because not only with high school players and junior college players, but even if you're transferring from a heralded school like LSU, you just want as much time to acclimate and not come over here just 1 or 2 months before fall camp and really just be thrown into the thick of things. Now, I think Travis Moore, at a minimum, can be a solid depth player at defensive end for the Sun Devils, and this defensive line, I know we talked about it a lot, and probably we'll talk about it a lot more. Really has been the biggest and most pleasant surprise on this 2020 ASU squad. And I think that should show you that the coaches, again, were really selective in who exactly they want to add, whether it's from the high school ranks or whether it's a transfer like Travis Moore. So the fact that Arizona State did decide to go 2 feet in and have Moore sign and be part of this recruiting class, which, again, doesn't have that many spots available when you think about the number of transfer players they want to add, I think that's a great testament to what Travis Moore can bring to the table, even if he's just a solid backup to either Tyler Johnson or Michael Matus or Shannon Foreman. If he comes back, I think that is a quality addition for Arizona State, and we'll get to see him. I guess hopefully get to see him in spring practice and see what his potential impact can be on the Sun Devils.
Such an emphasis on the transfer portal this year, and as Herm Edwards and co-defensive coordinator Antonio Pierce have called it, it's the free agency of college football. So with that in mind, what about 2022? What's next for the Sun Devils? It's a little bit in advance here, but what's next, and what do they have to focus on for those 2022 needs?
Well, I think it really depends on what type of transfers they do land, because if they end up landing a lot of grad transfers that are just not going to have more than 1 year to play, then those are the roles that Arizona State is going to address heavily in 2022. But I think that they're still looking to get as much depth as possible on the offensive and defensive line, but on the edges. I think ASU feels very comfortable with the depth they have right now at the interior, so center, guards on the offensive line, defensive tackles on the other side of the ball. But quality offensive tackles and quality defensive ends, those are definitely going to be roles that Arizona State is really going to concentrate a lot in the 2022 class. When it comes to quarterback, running back, I mean, obviously they have a nice stable of young players in each position. So I could see maybe taking one player here, one player there. I think wide receiver too, they can be very, very selective on who they want to take. And I think on the defensive side, besides the defensive line, a linebacker, I think you're going to be in a situation where you're about to lose a lot of quality linebackers, exhausting their eligibility. So I think that's definitely area that they're going to hit. And when it comes to defensive backs, I mean, sure, you really got a young talented group, but I think if you can just add some pieces over there, that's something they're definitely going to look to do. But again, I really think that offensive line, defensive line, and tight end, I think, are the positions that would concentrate the most in the 2022 class. But again, I think when it comes to the transfers, they will or will not be able to add in the spring of 2021. And if those transfers are multi-year transfer, just one-year transfer, those are probably going to be the guiding lights, if you will, just for the rest of the path that this 2022 class is going to take.
So there's still a little more to be told, it sounds like.
Absolutely. With the 2021 class, there are 3 more players, which, obviously I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder and ASU's thunder in the process of announcing, but yes, but there's going to be, there should be at least 3 more players that I would say between now and the very first week of January should be announced officially as additions to the Sun Devils. I would say at least 1 more commit that wasn't able to sign today. That is a good chance that they may be signing in February. So those slots that right now are more than a handful are really going to fill up quite quickly over here. So really curious to see what Arizona State is able to accomplish in that free agency market. But like I said, you definitely want to look at offensive tackles. You definitely want to look at defensive ends, and probably even a tight end as the roles that Arizona State is going to try to target the most. Promoters just today said that the transfer portal is 70 plus pages long. So you definitely have to really do your homework and make sure that you're out finding the right players, and don't be quote unquote in love with transfer X or transfer Y, because trust me, even over Christmas, even over New Year's, you're going to see more and more names in that transfer portal. Some players just might want to wait until their respective spring practice so that you can dip into March, April. So Arizona State has to be really careful with whom they really pursue. But I know some fans that were a little disappointed about Arizona State going that route. I said, okay, well, let's look at the transfer that Arizona State has right now. Kellen Deesh, an absolute rock at left tackle on the Arizona State offensive line. Henry Addis playing guard and playing really well. And then you have even a guy like Logan Tyler. I mean, brought in as a punter, but now he's just a kickoff guy. But the touchback ratio that Arizona State has this year is almost a country mile better than what it had in 2019. DeAndre Pierce came as a grad transfer from Boise State, and now is a starting safety. So I think these coaches should be given the benefit of the doubt in terms of how they address the quality and the quantity of transfer that they bring into the program. And I think that when it all's said and done, and again, it may be February, it may be only March or June it may be February, it may only be May or June of 2021 that this class is going to be closed for business. But we're going to look back and say, hey, you know what? I mean, maybe things didn't look that great on December 16, 2020, but here we are in the spring of 2021 and really seeing a nice rounded class that got rounded out with some quality transfers in positions of need. So I feel that is probably more feasible than a lot may think. But a lot of months between now and then, we'll see how this class shapes up. But I think it's off to a good start. I mean, I know it may not be flashy as this time last year, but still, I think a good start for the Sun Devils with their 2021 recruiting class.
Looking forward to seeing how it unfolds and unravels as we continue down the line here. But that's a wrap for today's early signing period for the 2021 class. To all of our viewers, thanks so much for joining us today. And for Hode Rubino, I'm Zach Keenan for DevilsDigest.com. Make sure you keep it locked in to DevilsDigest.com for all your recruiting news and coverage, and give us a follow on Twitter @DevilsDigest.